Okay, so let's go over things like objects, enchanting, etc., etc. Okay, so this also relates to people as well. People, of course, aren't objects, though in this sense, people act similar. Well, the same things that you can do to an object and that same phenomena that happen to objects also happen to people. You can kind of think of people as extremely magical objects or animated objects, maybe. That's one way to think about it. And objects just as fixed people, perhaps. Now, if you buy a new object, it obviously was made, probably it was not handmade. Handmade objects have a specific feeling to them which is a little bit different, but they still have that pure base-like feeling where it doesn't really feel like it's anyone's. It does feel very unique, while a machine-made object feels a bit less unique, but it does feel very standardized, which is fine. If you make something yourself, it feels very much more like you, and it feels like yours. The more you use an object, it could be a car, it could be a phone, it could be a computer, it could be some kind of box or something, who knows, or a brush, the more that it becomes yours, so to speak. Every time you touch something, you think about it, or you're in the same kind of area, your etheric energy, which is basically the kind of like an electromagnetic emanation of you, a subtle kind of pressure or energy emanating from you, will connect and go into this object. So the more you use something, the more it kind of changes towards you and your will and way and such, and it'll start to become more familiar and feel better and just be nicer, and you will actually be able to feel your etheric energy rushing through it a bit more if you are more sensitive to these things. A way to practice working with objects is, for example, pick an object like a pen or a pencil or something, or a cup, and here I'll do it myself, and hold it, and you're going to hold it in both hands or just one hand, and then you want to leak your energy out, or express your energy out from your whole body or your hand, and then try to feel the object, try to feel its weight, and try to put your mind or your feeling into the object. You're covering it with energy, or inside of it with energy. You can kind of think the covering of energy is like the field outside, like an electric field outside, while the internal energy is more like the charge within it. So you just hold it and you just feel the object. You just try to continuously, you just feel it, and you move the object around, and you try to, again, put your mind into it so that you are recognizing where it is within three-dimensional space, using whatever imaginary, whatever sense of feeling you can. And the more you do it, the more real it becomes, until you really do feel an object. Now, this is how sword chi works, if you've ever heard of that, or like a weapon energy or something, where martial artists would use a weapon so much that their weapon would start to glow. You can actually do this during a full moon if you go outside during the night and you hold like a stick or something, and you are really good at this, and you cover it with your energy. You'll see this strange glow in the moonlight. It's like a static kind of etheric energy. The same energy that you see usually around 3 in the morning, or 4 to 5, around the Pisces age, Pisces hours. So this energy it'll affect instruments as well. For example, if you play a musical instrument and you're really, you're really getting into it, your energy will start to flow through the instrument, and it'll affect, the music. It's kind of where you, instead of things being logical and being, press this button to do this. It's more you're just going to feel it out. Whatever your energy is, whatever you're thinking, it starts to go into the music, and the music takes on this emotion. It's how, if you've ever heard someone play a very emotional piece, I did once here with someone who was playing the violin, and I cried. I didn't want to cry or anything, it just brought that out of me because it was so emotionally intense, and that was them, you know, radiating, doing that through the instrument. Now, people are somewhat similar in this regard, where the more, okay, so if a person is in the same room as another, they're somewhat connecting their energy fields. Somewhat, if they're looking at each other, then they're directing and receiving energy through the eyes. If they're talking, you know, this is a further thing. This is more of an exchange than just looking, and more of an exchange than just being in the same room. So if you talk to someone every day, you meet them every day, you have some kind of energy exchange with them. It's not a huge amount. It's if you were just, say, a family member, or you live in the same home as them, it's more. If you touch a person, it's deeper. Again, just say if you hug a person for like 10 minutes, you're both exchanging deeper amounts of energy. And then something like kissing and exchanging kind of like fluids, just say saliva fluids, again, that's a deeper form of energy and physical matter exchange. And then the deepest would be, you know, sex, essentially the exchange of genetic fluids, which changes both people, and it also does change men. You know, the idea of telegony is essentially, you know, I think that the animal breeders would say they wouldn't let their animals breed with any other animals except what they were trying to get a child with, that animal to have a child with, because apparently when the animal would, you know, breed with just say a male, the babies would end up looking like that male, even if it didn't impregnate the animal. Or when just say one animal had a baby with them, the female would forever make children that looked like the first male, even if there was, you know, different ones. Now, people are kind of the same way with that. You can look at people's children and see, like, that doesn't really, assuming the father was the father, that doesn't really look like them. It's got some other look to them. I believe this is because, you know, people take on energy. Just say if someone's had a lot of sex with the person, they will take on that person's energy and look like them. You notice this with people who've been in relationships for long periods of time. They start to look and sound, and they start to have the same likes and dislikes. They become very similar people depending on how codependent they are. So this is an energy exchange between two people, and as I said, sex is essentially the most deepest way to you know, equalize two people and exchange with them. And then when they break up, they've still got that huge part of the other person, but they slowly start to kind of either, you know, a lot of the time if it's a woman, they will then get another boyfriend, and they will look like that new boyfriend. If it's the man, he will slowly kind of look like himself again, but he'll kind of always retain that part of the other woman, while the woman will always retain that part of, you know, all the men. Which is kind of where you get that idea of, you know, someone who sleeps around a lot, they start looking very ugly. Well, they look very chimeric, kind of like a fusion of all these different weird parts and weird races and such like that. Similarly, a person who travels around to a lot of different cultures and eats all the food and hangs around with all the people, they start to become this interesting kind of fusion, cultural fusion of all different races and cultures and such. Or just say you have multiple groups of friends or something. You start to take on personas and types from both groups of friends, and that starts to affect you, and you start to become this multi kind of like it's like a dual face, kind of like the idea of the Gemini having the two faces. They become this dual person where you can sense the two spirits within them. You can sense the two sides within them. Or if it's three groups of friends, that's a bit too much time spending with people, I think. But you sense three, you'll start to kind of get this idea. Or a person who spends a lot of time in nature, for example, starts to become more natural, more bestial. Maybe if they spend a lot of time around animals or around insects, they become kind of insect-like. Essentially, we take on that of the environments and the objects around us, and also we give off, and other things take on from us. And that depending on how strong your spirit is, on how strong you are, will depend on what takes from you and what gives. I heard there's an idea that a baby usually will look more like, just say, the mother or the father, depending on the strength of that person. If the mother is stronger, it'll look more like the mother. If the father is strong, it'll look more like the father. There's an interesting idea with that, and you could also have an idea where, if a baby was raised in a different country, they would start to look more like the people of that country. If they spoke the language, again, their facial structure resembles that. So if you can kind of get the basic idea of this, you get how people work in that regard. Now, more back to objects. Second-hand objects, I advise, if you are poor, of course, sadly, you have to buy second-hand things. If you have to buy something secondhand, try to really look it up and really, make sure it's not bad. It wasn't owned by someone who's bad, and make sure you try to buy things from people who are similar to you. Because you will, and also clean them well. Steam cleaning, disinfectant, all this kind of stuff. Really, really clean. Just say if you buy a used house, really clean it well and try to deeply clean it. And fix it up as well. Chances are you'll have to fix it up, because houses take on the errors and problems of people. Cars take on the problems of people. All this stuff, it works analogously. So the same way, if you sell something, try to homogenize it, I guess is the best word, or neutralize it, where fix up any errors, fix up any problems, clean it out, make sure it's as neutral and as new and as perfect as you can get it. And also, if you don't curse it, of course, trying to relieve any connection, any spiritual connection, because this can get into the idea of object love, where people who've got like dakimakuras or love dolls, or even like the love of maybe a robot AI or a waifu or something. You can, of course, love an object. It's the same faculties that allow for love of a human or an animal are still there for an object. It's not quite as as intense, or it's not quite as receptive. An object only loves you so much, so to speak. But eventually objects, they gain a spirit, they gain a kind of an object spirit, and that's the idea of like the demonic katana. If you make a sword and you put in special metals and crystals and ingredients, and also you put in that emotion and energy for this to be like a deadly weapon or something, it's going to become a demonic katana. It's going to have its own special spirit. You put the idea into food that it's going to be very tasty and delicious and all that, and then you use good ingredients. You know how to do it, you'll experience, and it becomes that, hopefully, if you know what you're doing, at least. So if you use something enough, like just say a computer or a phone, you'll kind of get to know it. You'll get to know, well, okay, it doesn't like this or it likes this. So sometimes maybe it's having a bad day today, or it's having a good day, or I shouldn't do this or I should do this, or you know, it's like it's kind of like a person at some extent. A car, a house, and all these things, they're living in a certain state. Then it's not alive like a human, but it is alive in a way. I guess it's kind of like the way an AI is alive, or something like that. A program is alive. It's, you know, you'll know what I mean once you work enough with something, and you can focus on an object just the same way I taught you that exercise with the pen. You can focus on the pen, or if it's like a computer or a car. And if I did this once, I did it as a joke kind of, but I also wanted to fix a car. My friend had a car problem, and I said, all right, I'll fix it. So I grabbed a bunch of pieces of like sticks and rocks, and I threw it around in a circle to make it more theatrical. I really didn't need to do that. All I needed to do was stand there, focus on the car, and perform like an energy exchange. You can do that with people as well, and I'll talk about that later in a minute. And I walked around and I chanted. You know, again, it was all theatrical. If anything, it took away from me actually focusing on the car. And I focused on the car, and I just gave it energy, and I used the will to get it working again. And then, you know, she tried to start it up and it didn't work, and we sat there for like 2 minutes, and then eventually tried it again and it worked. Of course, these things, they take time, you know, it's not going to be instant, but sometimes you can do that. Of course, if there's like a complete mechanical fault, sometimes it's, you know, you're kind of screwed and you have to take a physical route. But you know, you can just focus on your computer or something if it's having a bad day, and just give it energy, and try to focus on where the bad energy is and neutralize it. Just focus on the pen again, or the cup. You know, do that exercise, and give it and focus on it, right, with the energy field, and then give the pen energy. Focus on doing that. Use a continuous flow of energy. And then stop and focus on its energy again, and instead this time try to like feel its energy field and make its energy field good. Instead of giving it energy, just change the energy already there energy field of the pen to a good energy field, and that's one way to, you know, help an object. And of course, you're going to have to do it for a little while, like a minute or two, or you know, you'll once you get good at it, you'll see real-time results, and you'll know how much to do something and how little. And you know, you don't want to, of course, do it too much, because then it's going to rely on your energy, and that's not a good thing. And you can do this with people. Men, I believe, you know, as men, we usually do this. With women, we usually subconsciously shroud women and protect them. Or if a woman is taking care of a man, she will, you know, basically give her energy, her yin energy, to a man. You know, she's like hugging him. Or, you know, if a woman's taking care of her children, or for example, then she'll, you know, do that. If a man's trying to teach a child, again, it's the same thing. He'll focus on the child, and he'll look at what the child is doing, his child is doing, and try to, you know, be like, all right, is he doing that correctly? You know, try to feel out what the kid's doing, and what he's doing wrong and right, to really, you know, teach them in an in-depth way. A teacher can do it with you as well. You know, it's not just like a parental thing or whatever. It could be a teacher. It could be if you have a good boss, they're trying to teach you something. It could be that as well. So it's all these kinds of things. Just you know, become conscious of the energy exchange and the focus that happens between you and people and you and objects. That's really the main point of the video. And practice it. You know, give it some practice with the pen or the cup. Or a phone or whatever, to, you know, to learn that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and of course check the links in the description, and have a nice day.